In turning the legs for this Sheraton style work table, John and Thomas Seymour, who did this original piece, did an unusual inlay in the taper of the legs. They placed a banding inlay into a groove in 6 places around the circumference of the leg. So it's going to look somewhat like this test piece that I just made a channel and inserted the inlay banding. Now, how do you make that channel for this 1/8 inch wide banding? And that became a point of concern on how I was going to do it. So the first thing I did, there's the indexing capability on the lathe here, so I can get every 60 degrees, giving me a banding every 60 degrees. That's 6 bandings. Now, the first thing I did then is index to one of the slots, and then I set my tool rest at the center line, and then used this knife to create a straight cut at that point. Then, after gaining one knife cut, like is shown, well, let me move to this one. Right here, this is the one knife cut. Now, how do you get another parallel cut at 1/8 inch from the original cut? One way to do that would be to shift up or down the tool rest by 1/8 of an inch, but that's very hard to get an accurate 1/8 of an inch cut. So what I decided to do is to use the 1/8 inch chisel as somewhat as a marking gauge, but it also serves the purpose of enabling the chip out that I need to do. Now let me just zoom in a little bit and see if we can get a better closer up of that area that I work. And I'll just rotate this down into, say, that area right there. You can see the knife cut that was made on the tool rest. Then this is the 1/8 inch chisel, and I can lay it up against that knife cut and then push down, and every 3/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch or something like that, I make a divot with the chisel. Now, I really sharpened. You want to have a nice sharp chisel for this operation, so it drives in. We don't have to be very thick here. The inlay piece is going to be about a 32nd thick, so I only need a thickness, a depth of the channel at a 32nd. So let me just stop at this point. I would go all the way down, but let me show the next step that I do. Just have a 3/4 inch old chisel here, but it's slender chisel, so it's a little bit better for this kind of a thing that I'm trying to do here. I'll use the chisel to create the parallel cut, and I got the flat side of the chisel down, and I can see the end of the chisel cut at 1/8, so it gives me a good indication where to place the chisel. And in this way I'm getting a much better alignment of that edge. And after doing the chisel doesn't go very deep. Then I use the knife again and stick it in that chisel cut and just drive that cut down a little bit deeper. Okay. Then I can come back to the chisel and remove the chips. And again, I don't have to be very deep with this, and I don't have to be consistently deep, as the banding is going to be glued in there with a lot of hot hide glue. And even if it's a little bit below the surface or above the surface, I will just sand out to get it even with the surface. These chips just kind of fall out of there. You don't have to work very hard to get it out. So that gives me a pretty accurate groove to set in the banding. And this will just be smothered with hot hide glue and set in there by hand, basically. And just requires a little bit of pressure for a short time until the hide glue tacks and grabs. So that's the plan. I've got quite a number of these grooves. I got 6 per leg, and the 4 legs. So I'll be doing this for a couple hours.